All right, we'll call this meeting to order January 20th, 2026. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, good morning, everyone. We do have a quorum present this morning with all 5 commissioners in attendance. Commissioners, if you've had a chance to review the agenda and there are no questions or corrections, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Got a motion by Commissioner Toman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Real quick, just a slight change, not really an amendment, but under the tab B, we have item number 3, which is a break. We're going to bump that up to item number 2 and move that weed and pest board appointment down to item number 3. So just a little switch there so we can take a little more time to verify a couple things before making that appointment. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. It's going to bring us right along into the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda. If there's anyone online or in the audience that would like to address the governing body, we typically limit this to 3 minutes, and the floor is open. Seeing and hearing none in the full house this morning, we will go ahead and close the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda. That's going to move us right along into tab A. Before you enter tab A this morning, commissioners, is the consent agenda. We have 6 items. First being the approval of the January 6th, 2026 meeting minutes. Second is the approval of the county vouchers, the warrants expenditure approval listing, and the commissioners report. Third is the approval of bonds. Fourth, the approval of the monthly reports. Fifth, the approval of the abates and rebates. And lastly, item number 6 is a request to restaff a vacant position in the information technology department. At this time, I would ask if there are any requests to remove any items off the consent agenda for further discussion. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. I'd like to recognize Representative Brady for joining us this morning, and I'd also like to offer my condolences, Representative. I was very sorry to hear that. That's going to bring us right along to Commissioner comments, and Commissioner Richards, the floor is yours.
After I saw all of you last, I joined Treasurer Cowan, Clerk Swenson, the Public Works Director, the HR Director, and a couple of others on a tour of the HHS building in Rock Springs. We were looking specifically at whether there might be a place there for the Treasurer's office and Clerk's office to provide some services in Rock Springs. That could save some travel miles for people in the east and north parts of the county who need to get plates or titles. As you know, we provide free rent in that building, which includes utilities, maintenance, and custodial care for some nonprofit organizations. To be frank, that has led to some serious underutilization of county resources by some of those organizations. In one case, an organization has an office suite that includes about 5 rooms, but only has, I believe, 2 part-time employees. I'm not sure that is the best use of what I would argue is the most prime office space in downtown Rock Springs. I think it's time we take a hard look at who we're providing space for, what services they provide to the public, what kind of overlap and duplication there is, and whether there are better uses for that space. You should be seeing some recommended options soon, at least for making room for space for the treasurers and clerk's offices. On the 8th, I attended the Rock Springs Chamber Luncheon, and they hosted a presentation by the Southwest Wyoming Manufacturing Partnership. They discussed their partnership with School District Number 2 to offer opportunities for students to study the trades in school and to give those students real world experience and outside the classroom. Great presentations. On the 13th,
Commissioner, I'm getting nudged to get closer to your mic from.
pretty close to the mic.
There it is.
Jeez. On the 13th, I met with the Human Resource Director, Gary McLean, for a thorough update. Now it's loud on what's going on in his department. As you probably all know by now, one of his key people is retiring soon. I've encouraged him to start looking for someone to hire sooner rather than later, and that may mean a budget amendment. This is an expenditure we did not anticipate when we were writing the budget last year, but getting someone in that office and getting started training as soon as possible is a worthy investment in my view. Yes.
Sorry.
After that, I attended the Sweetwater County Economic Development Coalition Board meeting. The board was presented with newly proposed bylaws and an operating plan to carry them through their reorganization into a more self-sustaining operation after the MOU between the funding partners was dissolved last year. We should be acting on those changes next month, but in the meantime, the SADC is still operating, still fielding calls from businesses interested in locating here in Sweetwater County. On the 14th, I attended the NACO CEWD committee meeting. I've struggled at times with how worthwhile my time attending those meetings is, but this month's meeting was a pleasant surprise. There was a large focus on addressing affordable workforce housing at the county level, which is why I signed up for the committee in the first place. NACO recently produced a report on what counties can do to help that situation, and I'm happy to say Sweetwater County has already done many of the things they suggest. There's always more work to be done, though, so we'll keep trudging forward. Also on the 14th, I attended the Sweetwater County Republican Party's quarterly meeting where they received a presentation on the county caucus and convention process and worked on setting dates for those. On the 15th, along with all of you and most of our countywide elected officials, I attended the town hall meeting at the events complex organized by our land use department. I think it was a great turnout. There were a lot of new faces in the audience. I think I speak for all of us when I say we appreciate any chance we get to directly engage with the public. We had close to a 2.5-hour discussion with the people of Sweetwater County, which included discussions on at least a dozen topics. If you read the roughly 400-word article that came out online from one of our internet media sources, you might think that the only thing we did for those 2.5 hours was complain about declining revenues. I think it was a much deeper and much broader discussion than that. When we talk about declining revenues, we're not trying to scare the people. We're not running around crying that the sky is falling. We're simply trying to paint a factual picture of what budget resources we have to work with as a county and how we are doing the best we can to allocate those resources to serve the needs of Sweetwater County. One of our legacy newspapers published their article yesterday recapping the town hall. They're closer to 800-word article did a much better job in my view, providing a balanced perspective on the discussion. But I think it still missed what I want to leave as a final message on that topic. The county is not just reacting. We're not getting caught by surprise, and we're not just winging this. We're planning and building for the future. And the more we hear from all of you, the better job we will do. Speaking of legacy media, I want to congratulate both the Rock Springs Rocket Miner and the Green River Star on all the awards they received from the Wyoming Press Association. Those were all very well deserved. Then yesterday, after a couple-month hiatus, I visited with John King at KREO Radio to talk about all things Sweetwater County. It's always great to talk to John, and it's one more chance each month I get to talk to our constituents. Throughout the last couple of weeks, I've continued to participate in the NACO High Performance Leadership Academy. It has so far been an invaluable experience, and it'll continue for about another 7.5 weeks. Looking ahead, tomorrow will be a full day. In the morning, I'll attend the Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport Board meeting. Later that afternoon, I plan to attend the groundbreaking ceremony for Castle Rock Ambulance Services Rock Springs Ambulance Barn on Gateway Boulevard. Then in the evening, I'll attend Southwest Counseling Services Board meeting. I haven't been formally scheduled yet, but I was also invited to judge the chili cook-off at Western Wyoming Community College on the 31st. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that referral, and I am really looking forward to that. One last thing I want to address is something I see referred to a lot in the comments, mostly on social media, anytime we make the news. And that's the cost of living raises we've tried to consistently provide our employees over the last few years. I will not apologize for trying to provide the employees of Sweetwater County a competitive wage commensurate with the work they do for the people of Sweetwater County. Every year we ask more and more of the people who work for our taxpayers, who provide the services a county is required to provide by law, and who provide the services demanded by Sweetwater County voters. The people who work in this courthouse and throughout Sweetwater County government are deserving of every single penny they are paid. I understand that some of the decisions we've made have had a negative effect on outside agencies. I also understand that some of those agencies might not survive the cuts. But I want to remind you that they are outside agencies, and it is not the Sweetwater County taxpayers' duty to keep every nonprofit organization whole. While funding nonprofits that provide community services is something we like to do when there's excess revenue, the immediate issue is there is not currently excess revenue. When there is not excess revenue, I will prioritize the structural and statutory functions of Sweetwater County every single time. That does not even take into consideration the fact that I don't believe it is the responsibility of the Sweetwater County taxpayer to perpetually fund charitable nonprofit organizations in the first place, especially when those same organizations have failed to reorganize, consolidate, and adapt to changing times and revenues. The reason we have been able to provide raises to our valuable employees is because Sweetwater County has a third fewer employees than we used to have. We have adapted, we've consolidated, we've streamlined, and we still continue to provide the statutory non-discretionary services we're required to provide. To continue to do that, sometimes we have to reduce some discretionary spending, no matter how much we would like to continue it. And I'd also like to remind anyone, had Sweetwater County not shrunk its own workforce footprint, there would be zero revenue available now for discretionary funding. Many of the nonprofits we support, both through direct distributions and in-kind services, are providing overlapping services. And even more troubling to me, they are often providing services that compete with other organizations that we don't fund. That is not the role of government. Every time we allocate a dollar, someone else who wanted that dollar loses out. That is the nature of what we do. I'll continue to stand by every decision we make as a team, and I encourage the public to reach out to any of us directly to discuss those decisions instead of thinking that good policy is adopted through flame wars in the Facebook comments. I think that's all I have for you today, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Appreciate the report, Commissioner. Any questions for Commissioner Richards' report? If not, Commissioner Jones, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 7th, I attended the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County monthly Board of Trustees meeting. They usually start off with a mission moment. The CEO, Irene Richardson, started the meeting by stating she was walking into the hospital recently, and a gentleman was walking in at the same time. He asked her, "Is she the one that runs the place?" And of course, she said yes. But he then started to compliment her and the hospital as a whole. In a day and age where the world is full of keyboard warriors and chomping at the bit to say something negative, even if not true, I think it's a real testament to the facility and its employees that an individual would out of the blue just say such nice things without any prompting. Excuse me, I picked up a little cold over the weekend, so. On the 8th, the Hospital Foundation held a board retreat. I stopped in for a bit and listened to a presentation given on fundraising. Also on the 8th, I attended the Rock Springs Chamber Luncheon. You might remember at our last meeting, I said I would attend a Teams meeting with the Wyoming County Commission Association and some commissioners from around the state to discuss the changes the legislature is proposing to the direct distribution money that towns and counties receive from sales and use taxes. So I did that on the 8th as well. Currently, direct distribution goes in front of the legislature every 2 years where they decide how much money they will spread around to communities and counties, if any at all. The amount is currently, or has been, up to 8% of the sales and use tax, which translates right now into $146.25 million. In the past, that amount has been as low as $105 million, which would currently equate to 5.6%. So that's just kind of the brief history. The Joint Appropriations Committee met on the 12th, and while the Wyoming Association of Municipalities, along with some of their members, and the Wyoming County Commission Association, along with some of our members, testified, the Joint Appropriations still moved a bill through that would reduce the funding from 8% to 5.6, or a reduction from 146.25 million to 105 million spread around the state. And keep in mind, those amounts are for cities, towns, and counties. Excuse me. In addition, what this bill would do is it would codify in law the percentage and remove the need to ask the legislature what the dollar amount or percentage will be every 2 years. Probably a good thing. So what does this mean to our towns in the county? On one hand, the percentage would be locked in, not to be reinvented, revisited every 2 years. So that isn't necessarily a bad idea. It creates some consistency. There are a couple of problems, and one is the amount everyone would receive. But remember the reduction from 8% to 5.6. That reduction of the following amounts estimated by the Legislative Service Office is, and I'm just going to go over Sweetwater County, but I have the list of the whole state. Sweetwater County would have a reduction of $286,015. Barrel Oil would be a reduction of 911. Granger, a reduction of 1,958. Green River, a reduction of $247,799. Rock Springs, a reduction of $495,431. Superior, a reduction of $5,565. And Wamsutter, a reduction of $3,750 for a total of over $1 million. One other item to note is the governor put $105 million in his budget as a floor, and he even put that in there, that it's a floor, but it's not a ceiling. So some legislators are saying this bill agrees with the governor's budget. That comment is pretty disingenuous, as the governor put the $105 million as a floor, but does not prevent the JAC or the legislature from increasing the percentage or dollar amount. Obviously, this now goes to the full legislature during the upcoming budget session, so we'll see what the end result will actually be. That is a brief overview anyway, to at least get us going and trying to understand what is being proposed. So then on the 14th, I attended the Sweetwater GOP meeting. That one's already been covered. On the 15th, I attended Joint Powers Telecom Board meeting. Normal business was conducted there. Also on the 15th, along with all of you, I attended Sweetwater County Town Hall. Same thanks that Commissioner Richard mentioned. Appreciate everybody coming out or watching on YouTube, and thank Eric and his team for putting it together, as well as the events complex. I was told there were about 75 people in attendance, and last I checked, there were 117 views on YouTube. I thought everyone in attendance did a nice job of giving details and explanations of a few topics, property tax or taxes in general, or of course a major topic. One thing I'd like to have a couple of thoughts regarding taxes. The reduction in direct distribution proposed sends the remaining money straight to the state or the legislature. So the money that they reduce from the 146 million to 105, the legislature keeps that money. The proposal to eliminate residential property taxes and add 2% sales tax to make up for the reduction really does not add up. The state keeps about 70% of sales tax, where property taxes go to the municipalities and schools. Excuse me. Treasurer Cowan and Assessor Davis have reported Sweetwater County receives about $15 million a year in residential property tax. 2% increase in sales tax will generate about $35 million in Sweetwater County alone. Now, if the state keeps 70% of that increase, Sweetwater County goes from $15 million in residential property tax down to about $10.5 million, or a reduction of another $4.5 million. Or the question is, would we be able to keep all of that money, increasing our funding by $20 million a year? I'm going to guess that's not going to be the case. The money will probably be spread around throughout the state. So what that really does is it taxes our citizens in Sweetwater County at about 2.5 times what we're paying in property taxes. And then our own dollars, our own tax dollars, will be spread around the state, unlike property taxes. I don't really see how any of this helps the people. It increases the tax burden. And also, if the legislature keeps the 70% and also keeps the difference in direct distribution, the whole plan kind of seems like a cash cow for the legislature. So they want to take our local control away by stopping us from joining the WCCA, which takes away the people's voice, and they want to tax the people to death, sending all of that money to the legislature. If I'm not mistaken, that's centralized government and authoritarian government. None of what is being proposed that I've seen is for smaller government or lower taxes. It isn't a Republican way of thinking, and it flies in the face of the definition of conservatism. I want to be clear, I'm absolutely not opposed to the conversation of eliminating residential property taxes. But I want things handled in a conservative Republican way, not the socialist plan presented, which takes most of the power and money to Cheyenne for the legislators to use. If I'm missing anything, I certainly welcome a conversation with any of our legislators giving me some clarification. But that's the appearance today. Excuse me, one last thought. It's one that we all shared at the town hall. No matter what happens, no matter what the legislature does to us, we'll figure this out. Not everybody's going to be thrilled with all the choices we make, but we will make it work. We'll continue forward as best we can, but as Commissioner Richards said, the sky isn't falling and the world is not going to end. So give us a chance and we will make things work. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks for the report, Commissioner. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Jones? If not, looks like I'm up next. I attended the monthly leadership lunch with the mayors and chamber. I believe the day after our last meeting here, we had a brief discussion on the Combined Communications Joint Powers Board Agreement, and as requested, I passed along to both parties that Commissioners Richards and Toman would be reaching out to each respective mayor to schedule further discussions there. We discussed some of the presentation that YDOT had just presented to us the day before at our last meeting and briefly discussed the upcoming legislative session. On the 8th, I attended a meeting with Travel and Tourism Director Janessa Meredith, Mayor Mickelson, and Parks and Recreation Director JJ Seavrud to discuss the recent feasibility study for an indoor sports facility that Travel and Tourism had paid for to get developed. There's lots of interesting information within that study, and basically what came about was the recommendation for a 95,000 square foot facility to be located next to the Family Recreation Center, consisting of 5 indoor courts and 2 turf fields with an estimated cost of $29.5 million. The suggested partnership was a joint effort between the county, the cities of Rock Springs and Green River, and both school districts. I believe there's a dire need for such a facility, and I believe there is certainly a want amongst the members of the community. But as with everything, it's always about cost, sustainability, and the ongoing maintenance. Each of those entities have taken a little bit of heat over declining revenues and the corresponding cuts that come with those. But rather than dwelling on those important aspects, I will simply say that I don't believe we should ever halt long-term planning. I don't think we should shy away from open discussions about community enhancements or remain status quo during times of difficulty. Maybe it's out of our reach, maybe it's out of all of our reach, but it's worth the effort to explore the idea with the community and the team that produced the study, in my opinion. I received a call from Governor Gordon on Friday the 9th regarding the Sublet Antelope Migration Corridor and the task force he's developing as part of the executive order to review further the specifics of the corridor with the ultimate goal of the task force providing him with a recommendation. Only in Wyoming do you get a call straight from the governor. If that's not the Wyoming way, I'm not sure what is. Commissioner Slaughter has confidently agreed to take that role to represent us here in Sweetwater, and without stealing any of his thunder on the assignment, I believe he has a little more that he'll be sharing in that regard. So out of respect for his report, I'll pause with that, but certainly thank you, Commissioner, for stepping up. I think you'll be a great fit between your familiarity with the corridor and certainly your involvement with the great outdoors and your role as liaison to land use. So we're here to support you any way we can along the way with that, but look forward to seeing where that goes. We had our opioid committee meeting on Monday the 12th with Corona Insights. We are now in the phase of reviewing the results in the upcoming presentation that will be coming before you all in the near future. It'll take us a couple meetings to get through all the information, but we began with many of the stakeholder interviews and the history of how the opioid pandemic came about to begin with, which I don't believe I truly ever understood, at least fully, and kind of went over much of the marketing and promotion tactics that came about in the late 90s, offering more or less an alternative to morphine and some of the problems that came with that, obviously. Very interesting information, a lot to absorb. We have our next scheduled meeting for February 9th, and we'll continue to take in as much as we can in preparation for, I guess, the final report and recommendation before us all. Their current PowerPoint contains over 100 slides, so they're working their way through that, trying to narrow it down. But certainly look forward to the continued education and the hope of being able to come up with a successful plan forward. Last Wednesday night, I attended the quarterly Republican Party Central Committee meeting where we heard updates from the different elected officials within the county. Certainly appreciated some of the following conversations. I was in attendance with you all, obviously, at the events complex for the Sweetwater County Town Hall with the county elected officials. Thank Candy for providing the space to host that, and Eric and his team for organizing it. Similar messages to Commissioner Jones and Richards. I think the only message I'd reiterate that was shared really by all of us that night is that we will continue to march the county forward. We're always going to have budget constraints. There's always going to be decisions at the legislature that we may or may not like, but the important part of our job is focusing on how to adapt to those, and we will be fine. And I think we shared that over and over again last year. There's a side that you want to be open and transparent and discuss, kind of the outlook and the projections that the county is going to be faced with. I believe we'll be hearing from Treasurer Cowan at our next meeting in regards to revenues and where we're at year to date with that, which is always an important piece of us being able to, allow for projections and what's to come with the upcoming budget. But the important part is how we adapt and how we make those decisions. And they aren't easy. They're very difficult. We're getting chastised for everything we do up here, and rightfully so. But it's part of the job, and we stick to our priorities. We stick to our goals. Sometimes we can meet them, and sometimes we can't. We try and involve the community as much as we can in that process, and that's when we want to hear from people. So we will be okay. We will survive. We have planned for many years to kind of ride the wave, if you will, with the different boom and bust cycle that we've all grown accustomed to. So I look forward to those challenges, sometimes more than others, but it'll be fine. We'll continue to march forward. Last Friday, I attended a meeting requested by the Rocket Miner and their staff to discuss the relationship with the county, particular to the newspaper designee. I thank Brian, Ann, and Colleen for reaching out, as well as Commissioner Richards, Clerk Lane, Eric, and Sally for joining me in attendance. I believe much of the previous issues that the county had faced were addressed, with a plan to move forward on cleaning up many of the concerns that were shared. The Rockets had some various management changes over the last several years, which appears to be some of the kind of voids and unknowns that got us to this point. But I certainly appreciate Ann reaching out and wanting to hit the issues up front so that they can adjust and we can continue marching forward together. They do a great job attending most of our meetings here in person and producing fair journalism, which certainly does not go unnoticed. So I appreciate the Rocket Miner team. I also read over the weekend that both the Green River Star and the Rocket Miner recently came home with some hardware from the annual Wyoming Press Association convention for various individual categories. I just wanted to extend a congratulations to them both for their coverage of the community happenings and their involvement with Sweetwater County government. Well deserved. I've been working on the logistics for the multi-county legislative reception dinner down in Cheyenne next month with the much-needed help of Sally. Historically, during the session, the counties of Sweetwater, Sublette, Lincoln, and Uinta all get together over dinner and invite their legislators to discuss and debate the bills that are on the floor at the given time. Over the past several years, Lincoln County has led that charge. We offered to kind of go on a rotation and take a little pressure off of them last year, and of course, we were the first to draw the short straw. So we'll continue to finalize those details, but it seems as though everything appears to be kind of lined up in that regard. So certainly thanks Sally for her assistance with helping me get that going. Tomorrow is the official groundbreaking ceremony for Castle Rock Ambulance's new ambulance barn facility over in Rock Springs. I've been asked to share a few words. The new construction location is at 1301 Gateway Boulevard, and the ceremony is set to begin at 1 p.m. Aside from that, it has been business as usual for the most part. I'll have a couple of my monthly liaison meetings slated for next week. You are welcome for the short agenda today, and I'd stand for any questions.
did you put that agenda together or did Sally?
That was also Sally. Commissioner Slaughter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 9th, I met with Eric Bingham, our Land Use Department Director, to discuss various issues going on in his department and to get some advice on a couple of other things we're involved with. Later that day, I prepared for the Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board meeting to be held on the following Monday. I received the final copy of the Joint Powers Board audit that had been prepared by McGee, Hearn, and Pies. I read the final audit and prepared comments for the Joint Powers Board. I also made arrangements for technical assistance for the meeting, as Allison Valsic was going to be calling in remotely for the meeting. Shout out to Jamie and IT for all of her help. She's very helpful. This is where well, not quite where we start being redundant, I don't think. On the 12th, I met with Chairman West, Christina Marshall, John DeLeon, and members of the Corona Insight team. They presented the first part of the opioid needs assessment. It appears to be a very thorough report and will provide a wealth of information on our next moves forward dealing with the opioid crisis. We will meet again next month to review the balance of the assessment and determine our next steps. Later that afternoon, I conducted the monthly meeting of the Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board. I reviewed the final audit report for fiscal year 25 with the board. As was previously stated at our last meeting, the audit was presented as a clean audit with one material weakness identified, that being that we contract to do adjusting journal entries with a third party due to the lack of knowledge for doing cash to modified accrual entries by our board and staff. McGee, Hearn, and Pies identifies this as a common deficiency in boards of our size and structure. Sales tax distribution this month was $1,483,701.66. We have now collected roughly 58% of the tax to collect under the indenture. I then ran to Rock Springs for the monthly Star Transit meeting. It was a very short meeting with the crux of discussion centering around getting a fresh start for the new year. On the 13th, I met with Deputy Attorney DeLeon to discuss several items that are currently ongoing. His advice is always very welcome. On the 14th, the monthly meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board was canceled due to lack of business to be discussed. I then attended the quarterly meeting of the Republican Party that evening, as has been previously discussed. On the 15th, I was unable to attend my meeting with School District Number 2 Superintendent Scott Cooper and members of his staff, along with Joe Olivas, but Gary McLean was able to attend and filled me in on the content of the meeting. I was also able to receive notes from Superintendent Cooper. We have a follow-up meeting scheduled on February 5th. That night, as has been earlier reported, I attended the town hall with each of you and most of our other elected officials. I thought it went pretty well. I would like to see better attendance. There were more people there than what we've seen in our coffee with commissioners, but it would be nice to have more people out there who are engaging with us. Thank you to Eric Bingham and his staff for organizing the event, Candy Pendleton and her staff for hosting us at the events complex, and also to Melissa Atkinson, who was the moderator at the event. On the 16th, I had a meeting with Sarah Durienzo of the Governor's Office and Martin Hicks of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department to discuss the Sublette County Antelope Migration Biological Risk Assessment. Chairman West, as he earlier alluded, submitted my name for consideration on the next phase of the process. He submitted that on Friday. Later that afternoon, I received another call from the governor. So once again, kind of a surprise to get a call directly from the governor of the state. He is in the process of naming his entire work study group and has asked that we not give any more information on what's going on with that until he has had the opportunity to announce that full working group. The work study group is tasked with reviewing the assessment and providing a recommendation to the governor, and that is the next step that we will be involved with. Later that day, I met with Allison Valsic, Specific Purpose Tax Joint Powers Board Administrative Assistant, to sign requisitions and to formally sign and accept the audit so that it could be submitted to the state. I also submitted a copy of that to Sally, so we have a copy of that audit on file. Yesterday, I prepared for today's meeting. Tomorrow, I'll attend the groundbreaking ceremony for the new Castle Rock Ambulance Barn, and then later attend the regular monthly meeting of the Sweetwater County Museum Board. Mr. Chairman, with that, I will end my report and I would stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Slaughter's report? Not. Commissioner Toman, the floor is yours.
Okay. On the 8th, I attended the Rock Springs Connections Luncheon. As everyone has stated, the Southwest Manufacturing Partnership provided a pretty interesting meeting, looking for opportunities for our youth to be able to learn more about their workforce. Excuse me. On the 12th, I attended Eden Valley Senior Luncheon. Special guest was Mihai Robinson Kim, our Veteran Service Officer who met with veterans. She will schedule future meetings on the second Thursday of the month for veterans needing assistance or having questions. She will be at the Eden Valley Senior Luncheon, 11:30 to 12, second Thursdays of each month. On the 14th, I attended the GOP quarterly meeting. Good information provided by Liz Bingham regarding the process for county committee and other activities this spring. I was also in the office reviewing the agenda, the audit report, which was very huge. I reviewed the Bureau of Reclamation draft environmental impact statement for the post-2026 operational guidelines and strategies for Lake Powell and Lake Mead. And I reviewed the coalition comments by Daniel Betancourt, our CLG lawyer. Reminder, public comments periods are open for overweight limit on county roads, proposed rules and fees. Comments are due the February 20th with final on March 3rd, final approval by the commission. New rules and changes are also out for review for short-term rentals from being illegal right now to having new rules. Zoning permit rules, parking rules. Comments are due February 6th with final adoption on February 16th. Commissioner Richards and I will be meeting with the mayors on a proposed MOU for the joint communications facility. On the 12th, I did that one. I attended the town hall meeting. My only comment was some of the questions indicate that our constituents really don't go to our websites or listen to our meetings or come to our meetings. There were a lot of comments about how come no one's required to do audits. We're doing a $126,000 audit today, 140 some pages. And all of our entities have audits done. So if they need more information, they can contact the office or attend the meetings of the entities they're concerned about. I attended the Teams meeting on the 16th with the Wyoming Colorado River Advisory Committee meeting. They spent over an hour discussing proposed legislation to show how Wyoming, as one of the upper basin states, is being preparing for reductions in water and drought management. They will go to the Select Water Committee on the 21st. So there will be some proposed legislation for programs for water conservancy. On the 18th, I met face-to-face with Senator Pearson in the sheep corral, which was a great opportunity to visit with her. I said, take it easy on the property taxes, and I gave her the example of Farson has over 6, well, they have 6 that I know of, special districts, so they tax themselves for all of the services they have. If you give a 25% property tax cut, the ambulance service, for example, if it had a $100,000 budget, or the fire department, if you cut it 25%, it cuts their budget to $75,000. They can barely operate. If it's cut another 25% to $50,000, for example, those services, they cannot function. They cannot function. So I don't know who would pick up the slack for all of the entities they have out there. They're having a town hall meeting on, I believe, February 4th to ask for 2 cents more for their Board of Health. Because if the property taxes are cut, they're just going to have to raise the amount that they collect by raising the tax. And I'm not sure that that's going to be approved by the residents, or that they'll want people to go forth with that kind of proposal. So one change in one place or at the legislature is just like a domino. It affects everybody. It just keeps rolling downhill, and it affects those at the ground level the hardest. So anyway, I had a good discussion with her, and so I asked her to please carefully consider, make sure you have plans in place. If you're going to eliminate something, make sure you have a good plan in place to compensate for it. You can't just go whacking things without knowing what the consequences are. So that's my message to the legislators. Tonight I'll attend the library meeting at 6 o'clock at the Green River County Library. Tomorrow I will be at the ambulance ribbon cutting for the ambulance barn in Rock Springs. The 22nd is our Coalition of Local Governments, and I wondered if Commissioner Slaughter could cover that. I've got a dentist appointment that takes 6 months to get.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tillman, I will not be available that day to attend that meeting.
Well, maybe I can zoom in and out between my other appointment. On the 24th, I will attend the Museum Foundation, the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner at Santa Fe. On the 26th, I would invite everyone to attend the Pulse Legislative Session at the Holiday Inn. I believe that's 6 p.m. in the ballroom. And on the 29th, have Golden Hour Senior Center, 9 a.m. is a new time for their board meetings. So it's the 29th, Thursday. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate the report. Any questions for Commissioner Tillman's report?
Mr. Chairman, I might add one thing. Yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. It was a federal holiday, and I listened to a lot of the TV specials on it, and a lot of them were very inspiring peace and love and getting along in the world. And there were some great messages. I was very disappointed in New York City's message, though. If it's about peace, why do you spend all of your topics on bashing Trump and everything he's trying to do? That was anti-peace, if you ask me. So that was my comments on the holiday yesterday. Hope everyone enjoyed it and thought about peace and love in the world. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Jones?
I have one. I should have put this in and I failed to, but just congratulations to Sheriff Grossnickel on 30 years in service recently. So that's a pretty long stretch in that world. So thank him for all he does. And I know he does a lot behind the scenes, not just what everybody sees. So certainly do appreciate him and his efforts.
Yeah, here. I did see that as well. That is very remarkable service to this community, and appreciate his dedication and leadership, most certainly. Any other comments? If not, that's going to take us to tab B. Job well done, commissioners. Tab B is the action presentation items. Looks like we are right on track. The first item is the liaison assignments. So typically each year at the second meeting in January, we have discussions relative to our liaison assignments. I think past practice has been that we generally keep them for around 2 years and then look to mix them up. But being as I didn't want to make that decision on my own, we brought it before you all today to see if you had any appetite to make any changes. So I would open that up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
More than happy to keep all my liaison assignments and just getting into stride with a couple of them. There's so much to learn on some of the boards we interact with, and I think another year will be fruitful.
Commissioner Tillman.
Yes, Commissioner Island did not finish all of his assignments, so he has to work with me on the joint communications and the fine arts board. Yes, I'm fine.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I mean, it takes a good year just to understand some of the complexities of different boards, especially those that are a little more difficult. So I'm happy with where we're at, but
I am as well.
Mr. Chairman, I was much more pleased with the original copy we received from Sally's office, but since it was replaced, I will go along with everyone else. I think this is probably makes sense.
yeah, there was copy out there. I don't think it was Sally. I don't know where it came from, but it listed Commissioner Jones as liaison to everything, and
Oh, that was a good one, yes.
certainly would be welcomed. But no, I appreciate everyone's work and dedication to those. They're very important, obviously, for us to be involved and understand some of the different areas we help fund and certainly to help inform the public. So sounds like we'll remain as is for another year and maybe revisit next year. So thanks to all. Next is the Weed and Pest Board appointment. I'd said at the beginning of the meeting, we'll go ahead and swap that with the break. We have a couple questions just in regards to the map and just want to make sure that we're being compliant with the residency and where some of these individuals work per state statute. So this will give us a chance to review that, and we will resume back here. We'll shoot for 10 minutes, maybe 9:55. If not, we'll shoot for 10. Take a quick break. Okay, we will call this meeting back to order. Apologize for the delay there. We had a little bit of a discovery yesterday when we were reviewing the packet for today's meeting. By the way, we left off under tab B at our next item, which is item number 3 now, the Weed and Pest Board appointment. There's specific statutes relative to the Weed and Pest Board. And it states within the statute that in districts encompassing cities and towns with a population of 5,000 or more, that one of those district members shall be appointed from within the limits of a city or town. And the individual we have on file that is applied to replace Mr. Lewis Ehrenbell, whose term is expiring, lives east of the city proper, just a little bit east of the airport. And so we're wanting to ensure compliancy with these appointments to make sure that all the areas are being satisfied. With the holiday yesterday, obviously that's left us with a little bit of time this morning to try and review and make sure that we're all on the same page. It appears as though back in 2018, the Board of County Commissioners established specific areas within the Weed and Pest Board district. And those areas are divided up into 5 different sections, one being Farson, north of Highway 28, another being Eden, south of Highway 28 and west of the Tri-Territory. Another area number 3, which is Green River, McKinnon, Granger, and west of Green River. Area number 4 is Rock Springs, north of I-80 and east of White Mountain. And area 5 is Rock Springs, south of I-80 and east of Green River. So with that, we just wanted to ensure that we were making a proper appointment, and we have been in contact with the Weed and Pest Department and also ran this past legal. It appears as though Mr. Larry Folks, who has applied, does in fact meet the area requirement, which is for that area 5, which is Rock Springs, south of I-80 and east of Green River, which does directly replace the area vacated by Lou Ehrenbell.
I do have one more comment. Larry Folks is elected to the Conservation District, but that should not be a conflict, right? Okay.
So with that, did I answer or cover any of the potential confusion with this appointment? We do have a petition in your packet, which is also a requirement of that appointment application. And if there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion to appoint Larry Folks to the Sweetwater County Weed and Pest Board as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second it. I signed the petition. That's why I didn't make the motion.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Certainly thank Mr. Ehrenbell for his time on that board and for Mr. Folks for also stepping up to help us fill that role. That is going to bring us along to item number 4 under the action and presentation items. I believe we have Stephanie joining us from McGee Hernan Pies for the fiscal year 2025 audit report. And good morning to you, Stephanie, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can. It's a little bit faint.
Perfect. I'm gonna put on some earphones. Give me just a second.
Looks like it got better there, so.
Let's see. Is that any better?
It is.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that you all can hear me well enough. So that is perfect. I'm gonna double check one other thing. All right. With your permission, Commissioner West, I'm going to go ahead and screen share my screen and just kind of walk through our deliverables today, if that works for you.
Absolutely.
All right, can I get a thumbs up that you can see the financial and compliance report PDF? It looks like you can from my screen, so that's perfect.
Yes, ma'am. Good to go.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time today. Again, my name is Stephanie Pickering and I am the partner here at MHP that oversees the audit for Sweetwater County. I'm happy to present to you today what we anticipate being the final results for your audit. My intent is to go through the 3 opinions that we provide the county that are located here in your financial and compliance report, and then shift gears to some highlights in the audit committee letter, or the item in your packet called the report to the board county commissioners. So that's just required under professional standards and is our easy way of communicating with you all directly about big changes that you might need to know about the audit, any kind of key items that we think you as commissioners should know. I'm happy to take questions in the middle of the presentation, but I for sure will kind of take a pause at the end of my comments on the financial and compliance report before I start into the audit committee report. So if it's easier to just kind of hang out until I get to that break, that's an easy place to ask questions. But if there's something top of mind, please don't hesitate to jump in and ask your questions then. So with that, I believe all of you have been provided the audit report or the financial statements in your board packet for today. And where I would like to start is on PDF page 4 or actual report number 1, if you're kind of following along manually. This is the first of the 3 opinions that we provide to the county. The financial report itself is quite large. It includes lots of sections, management's discussion and analysis, the financial statements, footnotes, required supplementary information, your uniform grant guidance section. It's a very lengthy and comprehensive report. But what we are responsible for as your auditors are just the opinions. So everything else is responsibility of your management team at the county. Our job is to kind of come in and look and audit that and make sure everything agrees appropriately. So let's start here. This is your independent auditor's report and it is over your financial statements themselves. You could see right here at the top, the first section is opinions, which tells you the results of your audit. We did audit the financial statements for June 30th, 2025. That does incorporate your component units with the exception of the hospital. Of course, they have retained their own audit firm, and so we do refer to them here in our opinion. The results, though, of your audit are clean and unmodified, which is the results that hopefully you all expect as a Board of Commissioners. In the second paragraph, it says, in our opinion, based on our audit, as well as the report of the other auditors, the accompanying financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So again, a clean, unmodified opinion on your financial statements. There are other good information throughout the course of this opinion here, how we conduct our audit, etc. Really where I just want to highlight before we move on is the auditor's responsibilities paragraph. I always think that it's important to remind you all that our audit objective is to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are not materially misstated, but that does not mean absolute assurance. In my world, in our auditing world, reasonable assurance is the highest level of assurance that we can provide you. And there are some things that we do during the course of our audit work to make sure that we are comfortable providing the county the opinion that we do on your financial statements. And those things are really bullet pointed here for you all. We exercise professional judgment and skepticism throughout the course of the audit. We consider your internal controls and where we think that there could be areas for risks of material misstatements. And then we design very specific audit procedures to address those risks. We evaluate your accounting policies, any significant accounting estimates that you all use, and we also consider overall presentation of your financial statements. We also look at whether or not we think that there are any risks to the county being considered a going concern for the next 12 months, which really just means, based on what we know will happen in the near 12 months, do we think that there are any concerns that the county would not be able to continue to operate as designed or intended? Of course, for you all, no such concerns or risks related to going concern. There is one final paragraph in the opinion that I want to point out, and that's just this last paragraph here that talks about other reporting required by government auditing standards. The goal of this opinion is to just remind the reader that under government auditing standards, your auditor provides to you 2 additional opinions, one over the internal controls related to your financial statements and one related to your internal controls and compliance related to any federal programs that were audited. So that's where we're going to shift now, is to look at that first of those 2 supplementary opinions related to internal controls. Now that can be found on actual page, let's see, I think it is, 92 is the PDF page, actual page 80, I think, if you're following along there. Now, the goal of this opinion is to share with you the results of our audit work over internal controls. So under government auditing standards, again, I mentioned we take a look at internal controls that we think materially impact how the management team collectively records transactions throughout the course of the year to make sure that your financial statements are materially accurate at the end of the year. We also consider your internal controls for the purposes of how we design our audit procedures and how we address what level of testing we will provide over each of those individual areas. As a reminder, internal controls are put in place to ensure segregation of duties, proper recording under government accounting standards, and really just to assist in general operational efficiency of the accounting process. When you have an internal control deficiency, typically that means that some control in place either wasn't designed appropriately or wasn't effective in catching potential misstatements, kind of simply meaning maybe something was broken or a control was missing. Now, in our world, there are kind of 3 levels of control deficiencies. The first being just kind of a bare bones control deficiency. This would just be communicated directly to management. We wouldn't be required under professional standards to put that in writing. The next 2 levels, however, a significant deficiency and a material weakness do require under our professional standards to be formally communicated and written in this opinion here. Now, the other thing that we do when we identify control deficiencies is we look at them individually, and we also look at them in the aggregate, meaning if we take a couple of those smaller control deficiencies and we put them into a bucket, in the aggregate, would they rise to the level that we would have to report them, either a significant deficiency or a material weakness? Now, there is some good language in this section here about kind of what defines a material weakness, but simply one of the things that we consider when we determine those 3 different buckets is likelihood of an error occurring or repeating and the magnitude of the results if that error were to occur. So how would it impact your financial statements and how often do we think that error could occur? If the magnitude and the likelihood are high, probable that it occurs, magnitude is high that it could impact your financial statements in a material way, that's really what kind of sends us into that material weakness bucket. Now, if it's important enough that we think that it should be communicated to those charged with governance or you all as county commissioners, we would report that as a significant deficiency, but it kind of falls into that middle bucket there. Now, we identified one material weakness during the course of our audit work this year, and that is detailed to you a little bit later on in our summary of audit findings under 2025-001. We also had 2 significant deficiencies that we have identified and elected to report to you all this year. Now that material weakness, if we jump down to taking a look at the kind of the finding right up here, really highlights the information I shared regarding in the aggregate. So we identified a number of errors that resulted in audit adjustments to the financial statements this year. They impacted a multitude of funds. So some of them impacted the general fund, others your custodial or fiduciary fund. Some just impacted component units, but you can see here we did identify a number of adjustments during the year. I do think that is important to share with you all that all of these were corrected. And through that correction process is how we can kind of put our stamp on the financial statements to say not materially misstated or an unmodified opinion. As all of these probably would have had a material impact had they not been corrected, but of course they were corrected there. Most of these items have to do with year-end close items, accrual accounting or modified accrual accounting, or just kind of getting that kind of final bow put on the financial statement reporting at the end of the year. Now, the other two items that we identified that are in the kind of significant deficiency bucket, one has to do with some revenue recognition related to a very specific charges for services account. Again, this is really kind of year-end accrual accounting, not something that on a month-to-month basis that your management team would be doing, but something that gets recorded at year-end for the purposes of being compliant with GAAP accounting. And then lastly, we identified a control deficiency and a related audit adjustment that has to do with some reconciliations that happen related to cash and investments, and some processes that needed updating related to some new accounts that were added over the last 12 months. Now, if we jump back to that opinion, also inside the report on internal control over financial reporting is some additional potential reporting related to your compliance with state laws, regulations, grants, contracts, etc. And really, this is where our firm comes in and tests whether you have been compliant with state statute. Had there been any violation in those things that we think have a material impact over your financial statements, we would report to you those items through this opinion as well, and those are called yellow book violations. So some examples of areas that we do test related to kind of yellow book state statute compliance. Number one is, were your cash accounts appropriately collateralized under state statute? Another one is, were you properly invested or not invested in investments that are disallowed under state statute? Another example of an item that we test in this area is your budget process. Did you have a budget that was approved within the appropriate time frame? Are you following procedures to amend that? Did you stay within your budget throughout the course of the year and at end, etc.? We identified no instances of non-compliance related to laws, regulations, state statutes, contracts, etc., that might have a material impact over the financial statements. Now, the next opinion that our firm provides to you all is the independent auditor's report on compliance related to your federal programs, as well as internal controls over how those programs operate. Similarly to kind of the overall opinion that we provide on the financial statements, we provide an opinion over each major federal program that we audit. This year, the county spent just a little over $8 million in total federal expenditures. That includes programs that are housed directly with the county, as well as programs within component units, with the exception of any federal funding received by the hospital. So those funds are excluded from your schedule of federal expenditures. They're kind of included on their own. But any other component unit that received funding kind of gets grouped in with the county's funding, and we consider how we audit those programs together. So total spending, again, there was about $8 million. We audited two programs for the county this year. The Highway Planning and Construction Program, which is Assistance Listing 20.205. And then we also audited the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recoveries Fund, which is Assistance Listing 21.027. We provide again opinions on each of those programs separately. We believe that those programs complied in all material respects to the compliance requirements that would have a direct and material impact on those programs. So fancy language way of saying a clean and unmodified opinion for those two programs. The opinion here, language also addresses internal controls. So if we identified any deficiencies in how those programs were managed that could impact compliance, we would report those instances to you all. For these two programs, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the operations of those programs to communicate to you all. Lastly, this opinion also addresses whether or not we think that there were any instances of non-compliance during the course of the year that have a direct and material impact on those programs. There were also no non-compliance violations identified by our firm during the audit of these programs to report either. So overall, a very clean opinion over the programs that we did audit for the county. So with that, Chairman West, I'll take a quick breather room. Any questions from you all at this moment before I shift to the audit committee letter?
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate that. The one question I would have, obviously you spoke to the material weakness and the significant deficiencies, and you've stated that all have been corrected, which I think is most important there. But I thought I noticed, and I don't think I'm jumping ahead there, but it mentions later in that report, PDF page 101, that there's been corrective action, but the status is unresolved. Can you clarify that? That makes it sound as though these have not been corrected. And I just want to make sure that we have made the proper adjustments and I guess are compliant with a plan forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd be happy to clarify that for you. So when I say everything has been corrected, what I mean is that each of those bullet points that were kind of listed on the finding for this year, all of the areas where we identified that there needed to be an audit adjustment, those audit adjustments had been posted and have been incorporated into the financial statements that you see in front of you. So what you are referring to is the summary schedule of prior audit findings. And so our firm comes in every year. We take a look at the findings that existed in last year's audit. We consider whether or not the corrective action plan that was provided to us at the end of last year's audit was updated and implemented, with the hopeful goal of being able to say that that finding was resolved. What 24.001 is saying here on this page is that a corrective action plan had been provided to us and it was partially implemented. And when I say partially implemented, what I really just mean is that we continue to identify similar like adjustments that occurred this year, or that process isn't fully in place yet. And so we don't report that as resolved. Really meaning if we have an audit adjustment that's similar or the cause might be similar, we would say that that wasn't resolved because an additional error occurred in the current year. Does that help provide a little context?
It does. I appreciate that. I just now realized that was 2024. So
yeah,
I appreciate the clarification.
Great question though, to kind of help correlate the two years and what we're reporting to you all.
Any other questions, commissioners? Slaughter?
Mr. Chairman, Stephanie, just a quick follow-up to that question. In looking at this in the 2024 audit, it showed it showed exactly the same amount as a problem within the investments. Then we see in the 2025 audit that we have significant deficiency there again. In talking with the county treasurer, he told me what had happened here and what had taken place. In our corrective action plan that has been remitted to all of us from our accounting department, it basically for this year, our corrective action plan states that interest will be recorded only at the individual investment level with monthly reconciliations reviewed and approved. In your opinion, is that enough to resolve the issue that we've got? I feel comfortable that Treasurer Cowan has got this under control, but this is what we've received as a written statement as to what will be the corrective action.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, through you, Chairman West. So, we also received those corrective actions, and those corrective actions will get, reported. When we're finally done with the audit, they'll kind of be the very last thing that goes into the report too. So they kind of support the 2 years here. It does, indicate, you know, that, last year's audit adjustment and this year's are related. And I think that it was just kind of timing between how an audit adjustment was added last year, didn't get reversed properly or reconciled properly this year, like the timing of when it got reported in there. So I think that if the reconciliations are working and are reviewed timely, in theory and in my experience, all of that should be sufficient to be able to adjust and correct that for going forward. So no concerns on my end that those reconciliations, once they're done and kind of updated to incorporate the new information with the related investments, et cetera, shouldn't work as properly.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Thanks. We'll hand it back to you.
Perfect. All right, we are going to shift then to our audit committee letter, again, in final draft form. Really don't expect many changes here, or at all from what you have received, but want to touch on some highlights. So again, required communication under our professional standards. It gives us a way to communicate to you all directly without going through management to kind of share with you any items that we think are important for you all to be aware of, related to the audit. Kind of highlights some of the same things. It talks about what our responsibilities are, gives you some reminders about the timing of the audit process. But where I like to start every year is in this section here that talks about accounting policies and practices. Really, this section is going to tell you, A, were there any big key items that we should know about, and B, were there any changes from last year that we should know about. The first item there, accounting policies and practices, reminds you that your management team sets and selects all appropriate accounting policies. Our job then is to come in and identify whether those are correct and were applied appropriately against auditing or accounting standards there. Now, in terms of adoption or change in accounting policies, there were no changes to existing policies that you all have had. However, there was one new governmental auditing standard statement that was required to be adopted and implemented for the 2025 year, and that is GASB statement number 101 related to compensated absences or paid time off, sick time, vacation time, etc. The goal of this standard was just maybe to unify recognition and measurement models across lots of entities to make sure everything is really standardized. For you all, while your team did adopt this standard with the assistance from kind of your outside consultant firm, there really wasn't a material impact to your financial statements. So while it was adopted, you won't really see a big swing in terms of what that compensated absence liability was at year end. It just didn't have a very material impact on your financial statements. Now, if there were any significant accounting policies in controversial or emerging areas, we would communicate that to you. Really, that would highlight to you all that maybe there might be a little bit more risk or sensitivity in that area. I always give cryptocurrency as my number one example. If for some reason state statute was modified to where you all could invest in cryptocurrency, that might be an example of something that we would provide to you all in this particular area. But for the county 2025, again, no accounting policies there to communicate to you all. In addition, if we identify any significant or unusual transactions that are kind of outside of the normal scope of your operations at the county, we would communicate those to you all for your awareness. For 2025, no significant unusual transactions to report. I'm going to skip over the accounting estimate section, and there's kind of a better, more detailed section for you all later on. So we'll take a look here at your financial statement disclosures. Some financial statement disclosures can be a little bit more sensitive because of how significant they are to the financial statements. We like to point those out to you should you wish to learn a little bit more about those areas. We provide two footnotes to you all in this letter, and they've been pretty consistent for the last 4 to 5 years. The first is your net pension liability, which is disclosed to you all in footnote 6. And the second is the OPEB liability found in note 18. The reason that we like to point this out to you all as a commissioner team is just the volatility that can sometimes come with those pension and the OPEB liabilities. Those can wildly change, particularly the net pension liability, depending on how those plan investments operate or succeed or don't succeed throughout the course of the year. All of those assumptions are made by the Wyoming Retirement Systems Board related to net pension liability. You just record your proportionate share of those. So because of that, there could be some volatility in that overall liability. Same goes for the OPEB liability that can kind of swing from year to year. So due to the nature of that volatility, we point those out to you. Should you, like I said, like to look at that for some additional clarification. We've already talked about the audit adjustments that we have posted during the year. Our representation letter also includes what we call uncorrected misstatements. I don't want you to get lost, the forest and the trees here. Uncorrected misstatements are items that necessarily aren't perfect, but they don't materially misstate your financial statement. So we think that they're important, that maybe you just kind of have them on your radar. We communicate those to you all through an appendix in the representation letter. But again, the fact that those were recorded or not recorded does not materially misstate your financial statements. They don't change our audit opinion. They don't impact, in most cases, how we consider internal controls related to them. So we're required to communicate those to you all, but again, they don't impact the financial statement opinion that we have provided to you all. Now, in terms of the observation about our audit process, we very much appreciate the relationship that we have built with the county clerk's office and the other offices within the county over the last number of years. We work predominantly with the county clerk's office, so they're kind of our go-to main contact. They help us coordinate with the other departments and offices, including the treasurer's office and the county assessor's office, but kind of our main liaison is within the county clerk's office. And you're going to see that this section of the audit is very positive. So no disagreements with management during the course of our audit over accounting principles, any kind of judgments that they made, the scope of the audit, disclosures that should be included in your financial statements. We're not aware of any instances where they really disagreed with us and they went out to find a second opinion to kind of, challenge whatever opinion we may have about particular treatments. We do know that you all contract with PMCH and Casper as a consultant accountant. They helped your management team this year adopt that GASB statement number 101. They also help and assist the county in having the appropriate skills, knowledge, and experience to kind of oversee our non-audit service of report preparation. So while you do work with an outside accountant, we're not aware of your management team kind of challenging our opinion or recommendations and kind of consulting with them in that fashion. We also did not reach outside of our office for consultation during the course of the audit. So no items kind of were outside of our risk tolerance or our expertise that made us feel like we needed to reach outside of our office for additional assistance. Then lastly, just overall, no difficulties in dealing with management during the course of the audit. It is a long one. We start preliminary work in the summer. We're into the field kind of, late fall. And we work on it with your management team through the end of the year, kind of getting all of those I's dotted and T's crossed. So it is a long process. The county is complex. There is a lot going on, a multitude of departments to work with, but no problems with our firm and being able to do our job. So we very much appreciate the cooperation and assistance from the clerk's office and the various departments and component units that we work with over the course of the audit. Now, the next section of their letter just talks about shared responsibilities related to independence. Independence is the cornerstone of our work and the work that we do. Our opinion that we provide to the county, or our opinions, only has weight because we are independent of the county. And this section just really highlights that independence is a joint responsibility between our office and your office to make sure that we remain independent appropriately from the county. There is an internal control and compliance matter paragraph here. It just reminds you about those 2 additional opinions that are in your financial statements, and we've already talked about those there for you all. Now, lastly, and then I'll stop talking for a little bit, there is a summary of significant accounting estimates. We share estimates that we think are significant with you all. Inherently, estimates involve some sort of management judgment. Anytime there is judgment, that inherently bleeds in bias. And so it's really important when we come in as your auditors to look at those estimates and make sure that we feel comfortable with whatever that estimation process was. You all have 3 what we consider to be significant estimates: your pension liability, the OPEB liability, and then related to your self-insurance, the incurred but not reported claims at the end of the year. In all 3 instances, our audit work indicated no issues with those estimation processes, and we found that those all appeared to be reasonable. So no concerns with how those estimates were made and used within your financial statements. So with that, Chairman West, that kind of gets me to the end of the audit committee letter and kind of wraps up my comments to you all today about the audit and the audit process, and would be happy to take any comments or questions that you might have about this letter.
Very good. Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate the background. Questions or comments on the audit committee letter or any portions thereof of the presentation? Commissioner Tillman?
Yes, I believe on some of the outside entities that it kept saying there are no financials available, but their financials are available when they do their budget request to us, and I think it should be included.
Chairman West, through you. So, Commissioner, I think that you're probably referring to the component units. Is that?
Yes, yes.
And so, yes, the component units are consolidated in the financial statements of the overall county. And I probably can guess here where they start. There is one column here when you start to look at the government-wide statement of net position that has to do with component units. This column here, the governmental activities column, is all of your component units in the aggregate, but there is a combining schedule of your component units individually. Let me see if I can find that here. Yep, so it starts here on PDF page 33 or actual page 25 that lists all of those component units individually. So if you have constituents that are asking questions, you might direct them to the audit report and those particular pages for their individual informations.
But you don't include. But you continue to make the statement. No financial statements are available in the script. So that's confusing.
Yeah, they don't issue standalone financial statements, meaning you wouldn't go to Southwest Counseling Services and have a standalone audit report, or you wouldn't be able to go to the museum board and ask for a standalone financial statement. However, they are reported here in the county's overall financial statements.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? So I believe, overall seems to be good news, Stephanie. It's a clean and unmodified audit. Obviously, there's some things we need to adjust, and sounds like those have taken place already. And it's just a matter of, I guess, ensuring we get everything, reversed and reconciled as needed. But overall, from your opinion, if I'm hearing you right, it's another clean audit overall, and we just need to kind of, it was specific to basically year-end closing and some of the accrual versus cash basis accounting, I think, is the overall picture. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay. Any other comments? Was that all you had on the audit report itself?
Yes, sir. That completes my comments for you all there.
One question I had is, I know obviously this will require signatures of acceptance, and I believe it typically goes out to various parties, which include some of those component units. Will you be forwarding a clean copy for that? Will that be electronic, or what's kind of your method there?
Yes, sir. So that letter, the representation letter is what you're referring to that gets signed by everyone. That will go out presumably this afternoon. For you all, it will come through email via SafeSend, which just allows you to electronically execute and sign that letter. Once we receive that letter back, then we provide to the clerk's office an unwatermarked final dated version of the report that you all see. So it will have our firm signature, and it will have the date that we issued the financial statements.
Very good. Appreciate that. That's what I recalled, but just wanted to make sure. Anything else, commissioners? I don't remember. Do we need to take action on this?
Need to accept the audit.
Accept it?
You have in the past.
Okay.
So yeah, I think you've approved the audit.
If there are no other comments or questions, commissioners, I'd entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 audit report as presented by McGee, Hearn, and Pies.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. I just wanted to say thanks, Stephanie. I know that's a difficult process, and obviously you guys are the experts on that, but we appreciate you working together with staff and offering your insight and suggestions to ensure that the county's doing the best they can to take care of the people's treasury, and we look forward to the relationship and certainly understanding how we can always improve the process to make that transparent to the public. So thanks for taking the time to join us and report on all the happenings of Sweetwater County.
Happy to do so.
I believe the next and last item on the agenda, commissioners, under tab B is item number 5. We have a proposed fee arrangement to continue with providing financial audit services for Sweetwater County by McGee, Hearn, and Pies. And Stephanie has obviously joined us. Is there anything you wanted to add to that proposal?
Thank you, Chairman. I think that I just wanted to make you all aware that I tried to be as transparent as possible about changes that I think could impact the county's audit over the next 3 years. So adoption of new standards, how that might impact the fee in the year of adoption, how that might decrease the fee in years past the year of adoption. Transparent about the costs that it takes our firm to draft the financial statements. So should the county in future years wish to kind of pull back and have that drafting process done in-house again, as it was probably 3-ish years ago. That provides a little bit of transparency for you all in terms of what the cost is there as well. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I tried to, again, be as open and transparent about how we see those changes impacting you all in your audit process. The county is complex. It continues to become a little bit more complex every year. if there were changes in terms of property taxes and fundings to the county, depending on legislature. I wish I had a crystal ball on what that might look like, but again, those just kind of highlight that the county is a complex entity, and we take that into account when we provide you all the fee.
Very good. Appreciate that. So just a little background, commissioners. We have been under a contract extension proposal with MHP for the last 3 years. In 2023, it was 96,250 to perform the audit. 24, that went up to 100,000 even. 25 was 104,000. However, that is for the financial and compliance audit, but then we also had asked for their assistance in drafting the annual financial and compliance report, which added an additional 12,000. So this was 116,000 for that this year. And obviously in your packet there is the current proposal for MHP for an extension period of 3 years, which would take it to 123,526, 126,527, and 132,225 in 2028. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background on some of those price adjustments. That obviously still includes the financial statement piece. But that's what's before you. So I would open it up for discussion. We can extend, we can not extend, we can entertain other options. You know, obviously there's not a whole lot of auditing companies within the state that do this. There is another one through Porter, Muirhead, Corney, and Howard, but obviously that is who we have obtained to help with some of the CPA aspects of our financial statements. So that is the proposal before you, and I'd open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jones.
I'd kind of prefer to keep doing what we're doing. I mean, it gives us 2 sets of eyes, well, 3 counting ours, but instead of lumping it all together. So I'd prefer to have MHP continue on.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards?
I feel the same way. I would hate to see us try to be trained by another auditing firm. Audit is very difficult, and they do a fantastic job of working with us to provide us good, accurate numbers and keep us in line. So my preference would be to continue.
Commissioner Slaughter?
Mr. Chairman, I would phrase it just a little bit differently. Having served as an elected official here, I would hate to have to train another audit firm. We have done that in the past, and obviously McGee, Hearn and Pye has been doing this with us for a long time. They've done an excellent job, and I would like to see us continue with them.
I'm of the same opinion. I think we've had a great working relationship with MHP, and I think they've gone above and beyond, especially during some of the recent years with some of the changes we've had internally here, which I know has been a headache for both them and us. And we certainly appreciate their guidance through that. And they're very well recognized throughout the state. I appreciate the fact that they're in the state and we're trying to use those services accordingly. And I think it makes sense to continue on. Obviously, costs are going to continue to climb, but ensuring that we're compliant and going through this annual process, I think is valuable and very important. Commissioner Tolman, anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to ask Clerk Swenson, are you satisfied with the cooperation you have between the auditing firm and your staff? Thank you.
With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the proposed fee arrangement to continue to provide financial audit services for Sweetwater County as proposed by McGee, Hearn, and Pies as presented. And authorize the chairman to sign.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Stephanie. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. We're very much looking forward to continuing our relationship. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good year. And commissioners, with no further business to come before us this morning, that is close to a record. This meeting stands adjourned.